Good morning.
Not
What do we have to do? Is this thing on? We'll go ahead and get started a little bit today. We got a lot to cover. If you're grabbing lunch, you're fine grabbing lunch, but otherwise, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the four-way test is falling off the wall. So hopefully you all know it by now. The things we can
Say or do is the truth, is fair to all concerned, will it build goodwill and better friendships, will it be beneficial to all concerned.
Well, if nothing else, Corey is taking away the four-way test and memorized. Welcome, please.
I will. So yeah, I mean, both.
Greeters, thank you.
I would call
Thank you for greeting today.
It just said plan on.
Everything you can. Just get Bob with everything.
Exactly, and then you have to count out.
Sorry, I'm not you brought someone along with you. Please stand up and introduce them. Jim will help me do that. Here, you move around a little bit.
Who wants to introduce first?
My friend Tiffany Moore here today. Tiffany works at UC Health. She is a trauma coordinator and an ER nurse.
I'm Susie Wilkinson, and I have her Smith here today. It's her fourth visit, and she has is submitting her application today.
All right.
Hi, I'm Jennifer McNeil, and here with me today is Karen Johnson, and this is her fifth visit, and she's waiting to submit her application until she's lived in the steamboat long enough and completes 6 visits.
Oh, I'm Steve Jensen. I have Joe Champ with me again. This is his second visit. And now we have a visitor from Lafayette.
Thank you, Jim. David McLean, visiting Rotary from Lafayette, Louisiana. My house is fine. We pray for the other people in Louisiana.
And the first thing that I is from Lafayette, Colorado.
My name's Angie Gamble. I came 2 weeks ago, and I also met you guys at the Peace Pavilion, but yeah, I really appreciate you guys. I'm really wanting to do good things in the community.
Thank you. What an excellent job you've done. Thanks. Does this sound better, Holly? Holly? Yeah. Okay, thanks. We have another guest? Oh.
My name's John. This is visit number 4. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. So to get involved.
John, thanks again. Thank you, Ellen. Zoom failed us. We have a handful of announcements today. Tiffany, did you want me to say something? You're all in big trouble with that.
Yeah. It has come to my attention from several members that there are committee meetings happening, and I am not being told about them. So, in order to make me look like I know what the heck is going on, I am asking all of you, what works better? Do you want to just remember to email me and tell me who is at your meeting, or would you like me to send out a reminder once a month and have you tell me what's going on? I know attendance is not quite as critical as it used to be, but to some members it really is, and it's a point of pride, and I want to honor that. So if you could please Either email me your meetings, or I'll start sending annoying reminders. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Maybe you better all not knowing.
Tiffany, I know I told you about 2 people online. It looks like we've got 7. If you're
Okay.
online joining us, please send an email to Tiffany or make yourself known in the chat so that we can record your attendance. Adrian.
Okay, in the spirit of Tiffany's announcement, we have a membership committee meeting tomorrow at 4:30. It'll be my first one, super exciting. So if anyone wants to join, just reach out to me, I'll give you more details. 4:30 it's about 7 meetings, and I'd love to see anyone else who wants to join the membership committee or just check it out.
Thanks, Adrian. It's quite a nice conference room up there, so you should join us in the remotest interest. Jillian. Here you are.
Friday night, it's the hoedown, and we're putting together a group to go and support that event. It's put on by the Morning Club. It's benefits Boys and Girls Club and also the Morning Club. So far, it's me, Tara, and Peter Pollan, Jim Leyland, my mom. So if you'd like to come, please let me know so we can all go together.
What time is that?
6:30 to 10 at the Steve Brown Bar on Highway 40.
Do you take the James Brown Bridge Street? Was that funny? You're being surrounded by other notes of people who last minute said they needed an announcement, but I know that yours is critical.
Can we get a clarification as to where Steve Brown is?
I think
Sure,
that-
I'll put it in my Google Maps for you.
It's on 131.
131?
Oh,
Looks like it's 40.
Everybody,
After party at Scott's house.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nancy Keenan. You may not recognize me. It's been too long since I've been on meetings, so thank you for having me back. So, Rotary Flower Barrels, I know that this has been a different summer for the flowers, and I really want to give a huge thank you to Pete and Kit Pollan and Bill and Sue Leeson, who stepped up in a huge way, and many other people who stepped up to water on Friday, Saturday, Sunday mornings. It was a real challenge, and this is the last summer that we will ever have to even consider something like this. So thank you all very much. In light of that, we are going to have kind of an emergency pickup party next Wednesday, September 8th. And I really hope that as many people can make it as possible. We need trucks, trailers, people with bodies, smiles. We'll try to pull together a dinner. We'll have a dinner of some sort. I'll send out a lot of information via email, but would love it if everybody could just kind of rally together and wrap up this season's flower barrel event. They were beautiful. I think a lot of people were really happy with them. So thank you again for your support with all of that, and I'll follow up with additional information.
Thank you.
thank you for all your work.
Ashley, she'll follow up with additional information.
Notice where we meet.
She'll follow up with additional information.
Brian is right. It's on 131.
Brian is right. It's on 131. Okay. I'll put that in my notes.
So, on Thursday, my fault, I'd like to introduce Craig Townsend from Mason and Morse Ranchland. From basically out of Craig, but services Steamboat and what have you. He's been down the valley for a little bit and is interested in joining the club.
Awesome. So your friend Harvey's is, oh, well, I'll just leave it. People have been stepping up, thank you. I'm still looking for more help with the digital committee. It's super simple, as Matthew and Jeff can attest, and I'm making it more simple every day. So maybe even when someone like Jeremy Bailey, it's going to be that easy.
It's an apprenticeship.
Non-pay.
It's
like 40 or 2 minutes.
Loretta?
Yes.
Here you are. I just wanted to thank you again for setting up pickleball starting in October. October 7th through November 18th on Thursdays from 7 to 8:30. Be sure to call the pickleball center beforehand to let them know you're coming. It's $7 per person. Bring your own bettings. Thanks, Laura. Can I skip over our thought for today? I just wanted to build up to it.
So my thought for the day today is a little bit somber, but it's rooted in gratitude. Some of you may know my husband lost his father this month, and today just happens to mark the 41st anniversary when I lost my dad. I was 8 years old. And so my twins, 10 years old, they helped me pick out 2 quotes today, and they're both from the sage reading book. How lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. And if there is ever a day we are not together, keeping your heart, I'll stay there forever. And so my thought of the day is just to celebrate your dads today.
I love that. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Okay, before we get into our program today, Carl and I wanted to have a little discussion now that he's got a mouthful. We're going to talk about a little visit that we made to Rotary Park with Ellen and Paula and John Holloway, and just what's going on with Rotary Park. And I want to get some interactivity going, a little bit of feedback from the membership about where you'd like to see things going. But first, Carl, just give us a little overview.
Thank you, Mark. It hasn't been that long since we had our anniversary celebration at Rotary Park, and a lot of the history of the park discussed at that meeting. So if you were there, you already know that. If you weren't, you're in luck. I'm not going to go through all that detail again. But the park is a major effort that the club has had for a number of years, starting with the park itself, the area. Then we put the boardwalk in. Then we put the Peace Pavilion in. And we've been adorning that with the wind sculpture, plantings, and so forth since. So the park has continued to grow. And there's actually a master plan for the park that was created a long time ago, presented to the city signed off on, since it is technically a city park. We've almost done that master plan. And the group of us got together last week and just kind of took a look at where are we. And we identified some things that we
Focus.
And we identified some things that we thought we might want to start working on relative to the landscaping and cleaning up some of the area and so forth. But we also realized that we haven't really talked about it with the club for a long time. So you're going to talk before we get comments, right? Or am I going to do that now?
Yeah, sure, yes.
Okay. But Mark wants to talk a little bit about our thoughts about how we maintain the park and how we move that forward. Then we're going to go through and open up the floor for just a little bit and have you give us some ideas about what you think the park can be, should be, or doesn't need to be. You know, if you think that we've got our parks staked out and that's all we need to obligate ourselves to, that's fine. But if there are other things that you think we might do to continue to enhance the park, whether it's upkeep or physical structure or whatever, we want to hear about that. An example would be Peter Pollan, by way of Kit Pollan, last week on our own suggested that wouldn't it be nice to have an outhouse there at the park, a nice porta potty, because there's nothing anywhere around and the people stop off there. That would be a nice addition. And the group of us that were out there the other day said, no, that's right. We've talked about that before. We've never pursued it. We could put it in the parking lot so it's accessible to a number of people. So that's the kind of thing, while you're listening to Mark, turn over in your head things that you think would bring improvement to the park area.
And yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about different ideas from Mr. Carter. No, it's arresting. But something that came up during our discussion out there was, and I think Ellen or John brought it up, was about how we had talked when we built the Pavilion about hosting other kinds of events out there. We're lucky enough to have Angie joining us again, who knows about the club because of the meeting that we were having at Rotary at the Peace Pavilion. And John mentioned that we had talked in the past about having regular peace programming out there, and I thought, wouldn't it be a great location for the plein air art event for some people to go paint that stretch of the river from the protection of our peace pavilion. So we kind of wanted to brainstorm different ways that the community could really get better use out of this awesome thing that we've bequested them. And I wanted to solicit some ideas. So Carl will run around with the microphone. Matthew, you might want to use the camera to focus in on folks here. But if anyone has ideas like that, like the Paulins, it doesn't have to be necessarily events, structures, it could be anything. Jeremy, thanks.
I think that's an excellent idea. What's the process for, I don't know, something like that? You need to reserve it, you got to go through the city. What's all the process related to that? Where does the management of that all fall?
Okay, sit back down for 5 minutes. And then I'll get to the meat.
That's not a plan.
It's a new committee, they want you to chair.
There used to be a porta potty at the other parking lot, but I think they took it away because of COVID.
There was just a porta potty at the park, around Wall Creek.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
They took it away.
Yeah,
It's
I
too far.
used it the other day.
Because they brought it back.
But even with that one there, it's a long way from the other parking lot. So that way you can go either way.
It is a long way.
How do we get power out there that we don't have to lug ourselves?
That's a discussion as well.
Solar.
Make a note of it. Thank you.
Paul? Yeah. Paul Weaver. As some of you probably know, that Rotary sponsors peace studies scholarships for normally at the graduate level. And I'm wondering if we could investigate how our club might support that, or as kind of a carry-on from our Peace Pavilion, just to see if we could have some program that we could support the Rotary's effort at peace building, and through maybe sponsoring partially at least scholarships. I know that the program, I don't know how individual clubs can support that program, but we should
This is great.
investigate.
We're just brainstorming, so I love that. Thank you.
One of the things that we talked about and that we want to hear back from you is sort of the appearance of the park. Because we have had lots of water issues, so there are lots of trees that we planted last year that are dead now for lack of water, till they didn't have a chance to really get their roots established. And so that takes a commitment from the budget and perhaps from you as individual members donating to get our water system back up and going and reliable. And so we need to hear from you. Is that important to you? Do we need to move on and let it just sort of be quote unquote more wild? Or do you want something a little more, I don't want to say pristine room, but a little more cleaned up natural? Let's put it that way.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Paula, on that, to piggyback on you, the Yampa Valley Communities, YVSC, however you say that, they're planting the 500 trees in October, and I know that they are also thinking about the water, so if, as a club, we can reach out to YVSC and the city, I think that could be something to partner with. And then Hazel and I were just thinking maybe some yoga classes by donation. Maybe weekly.
Love that idea.
Other thoughts? Anybody between me and Tara that wants to say something?
When we first moved to town, we noticed the vignettes that you've put into the park that are just wonderful for flora and fauna. And they're fascinating because we're not from here, so we're walking along the trail. And I thought, it might be kind of interesting to, as we redo those signs, they're all faded now, to add some of your history in the area, little vignettes, maybe have a competition at the university where you come up with a paragraph that win a prize for the best history paragraph, and then put those interspersed with it. Be happy to sponsor or help, however, because it's such rich history here.
Good idea. Thanks, Pete.
When I was walking the bike path last summer quite a bit, I was also trying to coordinate an event involving some music and some people. I kept thinking, oh, that might be a nice place to listen to some music and a time of music, and maybe even finding out some things out about peace and speaking out those quotes that are on the ground and so on. And maybe also an event involving dance. Yeah.
Good thoughts. Thanks. That's why we're doing this way. I can handle the mic. Mark can handle the note.
I was going to just piggyback kind of what Pete said. I think the signage needs to be refurbished out there, and it's probably to add some more. And then something kid friendly. My kids love it down there, but something even like something cool in the ground, like hopscotch, or just something I don't know that we can add to make it a little bit more fun. We support youth, so it might be cool to see something like that there.
Great. Thank you, Mayor.
Any final
Okay,
thoughts?
I'm going to do a quick prompt on Paula's comment. Nobody's picked up on anything about the appearance of the park. Do we want it to just kind of let nature take its course, or do we want to intervene in some way to control the look of the park?
So, I have a suggestion for another thing that would be useful there because
that's fine. No.
Yeah, so because it's along the core trail, I thought maybe like those like they have at the base of Emerald as you go up the hill, like the pump/bike maintenance stands that like folks are able to use.
There's one at the parking lot.
One at the parking lot.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never seen. Oh, okay. No, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, at the parking lot.
Oh, okay, I never saw that there, but that's great. Okay, cool.
Never mind.
Never mind. Done. Great idea.
For what it's worth, I think it would be really cool to have some plants out there that are specifically butterfly, bee, hummingbird centric.
Good thought. Thanks.
Can we? You know, what would be helpful is that all of these are great ideas for programming and things that we need to do. But it would help us if we could have perhaps a show of hands. Excuse me. How many of you would support the club investing what could be a somewhat significant amount of money to repair the irrigation system so that we can plant plants that support bees and that sort of thing, but also replant the trees? Because that's your money. It's the club's money. And we didn't want to go sort of out on a limb without knowing.
We're very close to unanimous there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I saw Karen's hand, and then one more, and that'll be Elijah's number 4 over there.
If you would be so kind to define what Rotary Park is it from 40 all the way to the water? Is it just a pavilion? So I have an understanding of what it is.
And I'm probably not the best person to do this, but it runs roughly from the parking lot along the river, along the bike path, up over the top of the hill, back to the river. It actually goes beyond the boardwalk and beyond the top of the hill, back to the river. That, Paul, do you know how many acres it is?
I used to know. It's not, I don't think it's quite 2. It goes Rotary Park. It's all part of the trail system. The part that Rotary has adopted goes, the part that Rotary has adopted, and I say adopted because it is a city park, we do not pave, we are not redoing trails, that sort of thing, which are part of the city's responsibility, but our adoption goes from basically Mount Warner Road, that corner piece where there's a picnic table in our side, all the way basically to where the free-form art public places is, with the slabs up there. We don't really maintain too much past the triangle on the corner, on the south corner of the pavilion. But basically what we have worked on is basically from that triangle piece down. And that section of the park is huge, so because there's also land on the other side of the river. But the portion that we have adopted and work on is basically from Mount Warner Road to just south of the pavilion as you head up the hill.
And I imagine, Paula, that that's all contained in the master plan.
Correct.
So John Holloway should have that. I'll get it from him and can share with the club so that we can kind of continue these efforts. Let's get one last one and then we really need to move on to our program. Kid. Oh, sorry, Julia.
Are you allergic to shellfish? Because you keep walking by.
I know, you keep passing us.
I don't see any claws going up in the
I was just gonna say more picnic tables.
You know that, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, Kit. Last
And
word.
I would just say, and this is probably out of our control, but could we like stock it with lots and lots of trout?
Have water.
I think your assumption is right. Okay, thanks a lot. This is helpful. We'll take this back and work on it as we incorporate and try to update that.
Yeah, part of the reason we wanted to bring this up is to kind of gauge everyone's investment and belief in Rotary Park. So thank you all for your continued support. We are going to be approaching the city. John, in his lawyerly way, wrote a lawyerly letter to the city, which reassured me that I never want to get in trouble with John Hall. But to be frank, we're pretty disappointed with the state of the park. We built the pavilion and then gifted it to the city. And as many of you know, you were out there doing the work, clearing brush, planting trees last year. Many of those have died. So as part of the initial agreement, we built the park, the pavilion for them, and then handed it over to them, and they would take care of maintenance. We would pay them a small fee to do so. Neither of those things has happened. So we want to start with a clean plate with the city. And we needed to know that the club was dedicated to maintaining this, the upkeep of the park. But at the same time, we thought it was a great time to discuss what more uses we could get out of it. And these are some great ideas. I love the bee and butterfly friendly planting committee. And maybe we could find someone to put on a clinic about raising bees.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Maybe someone in the club would have some expertise about that. Thank you all so much. We're going to move on to the proper program now. They wanted me to burn some time so they didn't have to talk so long because they hate attention and they hate drawing attention. So the Lobsterfest committee is going to come up and then they're going to introduce our real guests for the day. Routt County Crisis Support, the Executive Director Molly Watts, and Vice President Martin Scott.
Did you miss us? So as many of you know, we're having the Lobsterfest again on September 11th. We're having it at the downtown fire station. It's the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. So it's also an emotional night for the fire department and first responders. But we are... This year our beneficiary is Routt County Crisis Support, and they're going to talk to us a little bit after we're done telling about Lobsterfest about what they do, and we're really excited to partner with them and to support all that they do for our community and everyone in all the first responders and also the rest of the community. We are having a wine pull with the wine that you guys have given it to us, and it's one bottle for $25, 5 bottles for $100. We're also having a silent auction, and some of our items that we have an e-bike, we have skis, we have cooking passes, we have a house in Maine for a week.
Trip to Maine.
Yes, a trip to Maine.
All the clothing made for Maine. We'll let you take the costume. Yeah.
Plus other items, so if you want to support that. And then we'd like to thank all of our sponsors.
And one thing to mention is we're actually, other than sponsors, we're not giving out tickets in advance. So if you did sign up, we have your name, just show up. Don't forget, because you don't have a ticket. So yeah, we'd like to thank our, this is like, ooh, okay, I'm back. I'm channeling Andy Wallace. We'd like to thank our amazing sponsors. Our Routt Lobster, which is our title sponsor, is Tampa Valley Bank. The lobster level, which is table sponsors, we have Central Park Management, Talon Grips, Land Title Guarantee Company, Mesa Equestrian, Rocky Mountain Asphalt, Steamboat Tennis Center, Steamboat Lodging Company, Fox Welch Family, Steamboat Emergency Associates, Alpine Mountain Ranch, Evolution Power Sports, Steamboat Radio, The River. That's what we do. Craft sponsor level, Alpine Lumber, Laura Brewer, UC Health, Holiday Inn, Adrian Struck, and Steamboat Sotheby's International Realty. Crawfish sponsor level, Debbie Aragon State Farm, All Season Financial Advisors, HLCC, Baseline Engineering, Fox Construction, THPK, Finger Rock Preserve, XPR Realty Steamboat, and Solvern Properties LLC. And just, I feel like this was, sponsors just came out of the woodwork so quickly for this Lobsterfest. So we just really appreciate and thank everyone.
All of our Rotarians. Thanks for all of our Rotarians who are always stepping up to sponsor. I just wanted to mention that we are having Constant Change, previously known as Loose Change. They used to play barn dance a bunch. So that's going to be our band. It'll be rocking downtown on the street.
Oh, that's awesome.
Got anything?
And open bar.
Open bar. Open bar.
What is it called?
$150 per ticket. Open bar.
How many tickets do we have left?
Like 4. So what we say though is that for those of you that can't make it but still want to support the event, you can go to our website, Steamboat Rodeo. You guys know it, we're my kids. Steamboat Rotary to donate. There's a donate now to support the event.
It goes directly to Routt President Support. RCCS. That we're getting her more about now.
Any other questions?
What's that a picture of?
I don't know.
Okay, so this is a picture by Mike Johnson. He's a good friend of mine. He takes a lot of amazing photographs. He's traveled around the world to take pictures. Sorry, can you hear me now? And this is a picture that he took in. It's a twin beach, a 1948 beach craft D18S twin beach. Whatever that means. You win. And it was taken on in 2013 at the Wild West Air Fest at the Bob Adams Field. Its original is all in color. It was captured in one exposure, no image combining or photo stacking, typical post-processing, converted to black and white, and is now on aluminum. So if he would sell that for $370, I don't know how the auction bidding is going to start, but $500 going once. So yes, so we have a lot of fun things at the auction to make sure to. I think also we're looking for items under $25 if you have something I'm going to donate some, jars of pickles. Angela's going to donate a pie. I tapped my dad into a skiing tour of the ski area for a day. So if you have some creative ideas, we are still looking. Okay.
Thanks again, everybody, for.
You could tell.
Always. First of all, this is our second time back to speak with you guys, so thanks for tolerating us again. But especially thank you to the committee, not only for picking us actually 2 years ago to be the recipient of the Lobsterfest, and then of course postponed last year, and now we get to be, it's even more special since it is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So you guys, thank you so much for all that, for the work you've done for this, and then also the sponsors in this room, as well as everyone else who supports the work we do. Routt County Crisis Support, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit that Marnie started, and I'll let her speak to that a little bit, a long time ago to support any sort of individual who might be in an emergency that a first responder would encounter. And then it has evolved into different programs, one of which supports the mental health of first responders through a fund that supports access to therapeutic interventions, both for them and for their family members. So that is just a free access to mental health support for our first responders, of which there are about 300 in Routt County. So not only including our sworn officers and responders, but also the civilians who support them, and then additionally the family members. And the next leg is our community crisis response team, of which you guys, some people in this room have benefited from. We will provide a team to go to a scene or to provide a debriefing if there is an incident that is impactful within the community, to then help start the process of healing through after a crisis or a traumatic event. We are looking to grow that program to provide services that Routt County does not currently have. We're looking at our Moffat County partners to see what they're doing, but to add a community victims advocacy program. So different than what Advocates does, which is domestic violence, sexual assault. We actually want to do support, on-scene support for unattended deaths and or adult victims of crime. So that's a piece that we're growing that we don't currently have. And then the last leg is our emergency assistance. So that's anyone who might be coming or driving through or living in our community who need an on-demand emergency support, whether it is a hotel night or a gas card to get to Denver. So we have those components. And the boring stuff before I let Arnie talk and entertain you guys is just to let you guys know, year to date, our program has spent a little over $24,000. That's from January till now on first responder wellness visits. So that for them or their family members. So that actually adds almost 300 visits since January till now for our first responder community, which has grown. Last year, I believe that was at 163 visits. So our program in that regard is growing, and we're happy to report that I think some of the stigma of accessing mental health for our first responders is decreasing, thanks largely in part to Chief Christensen and also Chief Sarah Soley over here, who really have always supported our program since the beginning and the inception. And Chief Sarah Soley actually supported. He was one of the first supporters in getting Marnie trained in peer support, which is another leg of what we do. So big kudos to the support that we have on an administrative level to recognize the need to break down the stigma of accessing mental health and mental health support. So that comes from them. What we are looking to do with the financial support we will receive from this is just continue to grow our programming. We are we're fairly small and kind of fall under the radar on purpose because we don't need to advertise everyone accessing mental health services all the time. But we do try to make sure that when those services are needed, they're available. So part of that is you don't know when a crisis is going to occur. You don't know when stuff's going to hit the fan. We want to make sure that we always have programming and funding available to be able to pay our valued and vetted therapists or our team to respond to a crisis, or to have money when a couple of our emergency assistance examples was paying for a father to go to Denver to visit, family member a new father who was who needed gasoline to get to Denver to support his new family, or just supporting communities that maybe are lacking basic utilities. So those are a couple examples of what we've done with that. So those funds are always needing to be there and fairly robust because we have no idea ever when they're going to come up. The last point that I wanted to address is just how COVID has affected our CCS. We know stuff happens regardless of COVID, but with COVID, there's an extra layer of stress. So understanding whether it's our first responders, our law enforcement, firefighter, paramedic, our volunteers on search and rescue, there's an extra layer of stress to have to go and respond to calls and needs when you do have that layer of COVID. But also supporting our other community responders. We extended our definition of a first responder through COVID to include Department of Public Health, Roberta, nice to see you, to also include that to sometimes DHS. So expanding the definition of first responder during certain circumstances, which we definitely did during the times of COVID to support the people who are on the front line who don't typically fall into that classification. So providing debriefing services and chronic and acute stress support services for them. So with that, I'm going to
Breathe. I was totally comfortable coming today until I saw Roberta, and then I just got all sweaty.
I don't even need to sorry. On lighters.
Got it? Is that better? All right. I really don't have a lot to add. I just wanted to kind of piggyback well, first of all, if you see my boss today, let him know I am at the station doing inventory right now. He doesn't know I'm here. So. I'm gonna watch my language now. And Chief Christensen, I'm psyched for our trip coming up. We're leaving tomorrow, I think. I just want to thank this room and those who aren't here. The support that I might cry. This is definitely a damn you. This nonprofit is just so near and dear to me, and the fact that we were chosen, the fact that you let us speak to you 3 years ago, you let us in the room. I don't even know how that happened. It's so impactful to me. It has been impactful for my coworkers, my family, my immediate family, my work family, and it's just a little bit overwhelming how appreciative I am, and we all are, to this room. Like Molly said, I did stumbled upon starting this nonprofit almost 10 years ago now, and to watch how it's grown and to watch how these first responders are trusting in it and how the community is trusting in it is just, that too is overwhelming. So I really don't have anything else to add that's like numbers or anything. I hope you can feel my appreciation. I have so many more things to say.
Do you want to see if there are any questions?
Yeah, sure.
Any questions?
Can you just give us an indication in terms of how many people overall in the community you think you've helped in a given year? At least get an idea in terms of the job you're doing?
Yeah, I can do my best. So aside from the almost 300 first responders session visits that we've had this year, and like I said, the bunch we had last year, the community members, last year we had
I can answer that. We impacted, let's say impacted, we met with, how's that? I don't know, we impacted, now I lost my train of thought. So there was probably about over 300 people that we had contact with, and that could have been one-on-one or group settings. Unfortunately, we did have a few crisis, kind of catastrophic things happen last year, and hoping for more this year.
Last year there were about 300. There were about 31 debriefings that we did within the year, and that was also supporting teams, frontline teams, but then the community crisis debriefings. So at about 10 a pop, that's about 300 people last year. There have, to Marnie's sick point, there have been fewer this year, thankfully. But we do know that, when those needs arise, whether it's, I'm not going to borrow trouble, so I'm not going to spew off the opportunities to support, but we have had, I think, only about 2 or 3 debriefings this year that we've done on the community-wide, which is why I want to grow, which is why I think it's a great opportunity to grow the victim services, because we want to make sure that the big impact is when there is, again, that unattended death, and there's our law enforcement officers are needing to leave to move on to the next call or firefight, and we need somebody there to support those family, that community. So that's a piece wanting to grow so that we can continue to reach people, because it's a little tricky sometimes to just wait for a critical event and then swoop in when needed, and sometimes it's not always needed, but on the scene support is something to grow. So
one more thing on that front, just to give you a quick example, and I know
You're fine.
So what just a little example of what Molly's talking about, one of that I see a need for is that when we are on scene, unfortunately there is a death, there's law is there. I can think of one example. There was one officer there because you guys were busy, and then there was the fire department was there. At that point, what we would love to have, which Moffat County has, is to call a team member that we're going to build, have them come to the scene, because as a paramedic, I'm dealing with the mom who is just had the worst day of her life, and I need to go to another call, or that's not really my gig. Does that make sense? So that's what we're trying to build, and that is just what we feel is an absolute need that Routt doesn't have, which is a little shocking. So just to give a quick, okay, still sweating.
I would just follow up on that. Those numbers are direct impacts, right? What you said, but I would very much argue that every single contact has a ripple effect through our community that is you can't even describe, right? You're talking about people that are out there working for the community and in the community, and if they're having trouble, then every contact they make feels that. And so when you can affect someone's life in that matter, and then they're in the community, and that ripple effect is unbelievable. So maybe you're talking $300 or 300 people direct contact, but obviously I believe the impact is much greater.
And our hope too, especially with the first responder wellness, is that retention piece too, to keep good law and firefighter people here, so that the burnout is decreased and we can keep good ones, all of them that continue to serve our community here, so they understand that there's
like Corey.
Yeah, I'm sort of a bottom line person in terms of fundraising, and so we're looking at this event in order to really be successful and reach as many community members and to have the resources for when things do happen. What sort of amount of money do you need for us to raise on your behalf?
$800,000.
I can maybe do 6.
And a lunch.
No, I appreciate that question because I'm kind of bottom line too. So our operating
operating budget changes, it does tend to change, and it's a bit of a moving target, which I know is not the answer as the bottom line person I want to hear. But what we have done in the last 3 years is every single year, we've, with the exception of this last year, we've added a new program to what we do. So it's right now, when we were having this conversation yesterday at the meeting, we were talking about, so is this going to buy printer ink or a new printer, or is this going to fund an all new program that we're growing and training and all the pieces to that? If we really wanted to make sure we had everything covered for a year, my hope is that we would get about 20 to 25,000 from this event. That's not to say, obviously, the long answer to this. I'm going to add a little bit more. We can apply for victim services funding through the state. However, that funding cycle does not start again until the end of 2022. So we want to build this program like we're talking about doing. We actually are going to have to kind of home grow it until I can apply for a grant at the end of 2022, which will then apply to 2023. So working, with the end in mind, and we can't go that long without this program in place, in my opinion. So that's what this is going to really help support, is that new programming, training our folks who are going to respond to these calls. I want someone on call 24/7 if I can, and then also some of the incidentals that come with it, whether it's paying for a phone that they carry or some of those pieces.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're operating with operating income. Are there any pieces of equipment that you said, gosh, if we just had this, is there anything like that that you find yourself yearning for?
Our overhead's pretty slim. We don't have a lot of need for it. It's people who are okay and comfortable with responding to a crisis. So we're very fortunate. We are part of the Partners Building Collaborative. So we rent an office space there from Partners, which for a very nominal amount of money. We get to use all of their equipment, their printer, that sort of thing. The rest of it is kind of human power. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question.
And this a team that you'd like to build, what type of qualities would you be looking at in individuals who would be part of that team to help you out?
I'll let Marty answer that one.
People that are strong in the head. We have a good group right now, actually, that we train for our community response. I think what we are tapping into also, or what Molly's working on, is bringing up people from Denver to help train them for at-home services, which is what we're going to be doing. So a lot of the people that we have on our team already are familiar with crisis work, basically first responders in and of themselves. So people that are flexible and that we can train even more to get them comfortable being in people's homes and whatnot. So no PhD, or I would be out. If there were any qualifications, I would be out. So no education, very little, all this. So we're just looking for people that care and that want to help. It's really that simple.
No tech.
And swear, yeah, very inappropriate.
Especially about my
Hey, Ryan, can you give folks a little more of an idea of the time, commitment, activities that go on? So let's take a fictional, sadly not fictional story. Tonight, 11:30, we have gunshots.
Are you kidding? I am on duty. You totally just went against everything you were supposed to do. And you jinxed us. So.
Okay, Ryan, yes.
It just happens,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And you guys put a lot of time, a lot of man hours, do a lot of touches. Walk folks through kind of what goes on over the course of weeks even.
Okay, so I love this opportunity. So let's say there, and of course it's the topic of so many conversations. Let's say there's a death by suicide involving a firearm in a public place. What then happens is obviously law and fire paramedics go to respond to that call. It's a busy 5:30 in the evening on a Friday. They have to go do other things. So the idea behind this is that we mobilize our team, which actually is contacted by dispatch, not by one of us, because we don't want to be indispensable. So actually our numbers go to dispatch. Dispatch also then activates the critical crisis response team. And we have whoever's on call at that moment go to respond to the scene. So at that point, they communicate, and the expectation for that team member would be a 30-minute at most response time. So they go to the scene of that accident or that incident. They get information from law. They have a working relationship with law. They have a working relationship with Steamboat Fire. And there's trust there, which of course takes some time to be built up. And then they actually are folks who help manage any sort of, they give resources to bystanders who maybe witnessed the incident. They give resources to family members. If it's a death by suicide, we're going to have to bring in reps, of course, because reps is a very important component to this. They have their own amazing pool of resources to be able to do this. I'm learning more about reps every day. They have scene cleanup. Contracts with that. So we were working with other agencies to be able to support the on-scene support within that. The next piece that happens is that our program then follows up with people who maybe were impacted, the bystanders who were there. We get names and numbers if they want follow-up. How are you doing? But also the other leg of what we do is to follow up with every officer and responder who was there to make sure they're doing okay, to see what sort of situation this may be triggered in them, and how are you doing? Check in with their surgeons, check in with their leadership to see as a department how they're doing. So that's kind of the whole walking through, and then obviously making a debriefing available, so not even on scene, but within 72 hours, making a debriefing available not only for the responders, but also offering a debriefing for anyone who maybe witnessed this, because we know brain science would tell us that that's actually one of the best components to start healing from a traumatic exposure, a traumatic event. So doing that within 72 hours, getting those people together if they want to, finding a location, having that facilitated. So all of those components falling into place, and then keeping track of how much we are providing those services and making sure that community members know that we have this. If this were to maybe not be a public place, let's say a bank experiences a significant loss within their building or outside of their building from a team member, we can also support that component, talk about, some of it, get people in the room to really start talking about what this incident means to them.
We also, just really quick, and I appreciate that question because there are a lot of parts and pieces. On the first responder part of it, we did have a suicide almost a year ago of a first responder, and how that looked was we almost got almost paged on the radio. We brought the peer support team over to that station where he was working out of, and we were there for the other firefighters and also for their family members that were worried about them not coming home and trying to work out that bridge too. So, and then followed that department for still. So again, there's that community piece and then the first responder unfortunate piece that also has moving parts, but a team for that and a team for that, so it's kind of cool.
We have time for maybe one more.
So I don't want to take away from your organization at all, but it seems like this is a community need. And I look at our two chiefs and maybe possibly Dr. Harrington from the hospital. Why haven't we funded a crisis team through our tax base and made this a full-time equivalent type positions or positions through law and fire? Why are we having to rely on a nonprofit to provide a service to our community? That, again, you're doing amazing work. I don't want to take away from your organization at all, but why are we not working to fund this through our tax base and really make this something that's there and sustainable and not having to, for lack of better words, come through people like us and get funding? I mean, it's just my heartstrings tear out on why we're not making this something that's funded through, I love paying taxes, by the way.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, through our municipalities.
And I can let them speak to that. Both those departments can have a line item that supports the work we do as well. So, including the Routt County Sheriff as well. So all three of those entities who utilize this have a line item that support us financially.
There was a crisis team in place. I think it was called Timberline. I'm only looking at you because it was through the hospital that would handle first responder debriefings. That's dissolved because of financial and it just dissolved. So that was picked up by us. There was a crisis team through the hospital that dealt with hospital-based crisis. That is dissolved or dissolving.
That's absorbed.
So to your point, it does seem like we are a little slow on the go on that. So I guess that would be what I'd say is they were kind of in place, but we kind of took it and made it bigger. But I will shut up and maybe if you had anything to add, Chief.
Well, Jeremy, I'll tell you, one of my favorite things to do is spend your tax money. I do enjoy that. There is, you know, it's a twofold thing. You can't have money and it creates it. You need special people to run it, right? And it's unique in that we do give money to this organization out of our line item, so we are contributing to that. And the idea, and when I have spoken to Molly and Marnie, my statement has been, just tell me how much and I will put that in the budget, right? And so we do some of that. There are some other, without getting too political, there's some things they're trying to do that I wanted to do when I first got here, and there were other people in this community stopping it, like crisis response for victims of crime. And there are entities in this city who were making money off of that who did not want me to do that. And we're one of the few. I came from an organization where we had 3 full-time people to do nothing but respond to victims of crime, any crime. And so that's a little frustrating when you're trying to do that as well. Steven's looking at me like we were nuts that we didn't have that already up here, right? Because he comes from a place where that stuff was really common. But when we did see that I was happy to write your check and put that out there, because honestly, when Molly and Marnie stepped forward, that is helpful for me. I sleep better at night knowing they're helping people sleep better at night.
Oh my God.
Hey Marnie, I was going to tell you that when I leave, Marnie is going to be going with me. So, whichever one gets to the seat first.
And to that point, Chief has been, both chiefs, so supportive of the mental health, as Corey and I, Chief Christian and I have talked. Sorry.
It's okay.
You only get that for a couple more days.
Right.
You know, that he came from a place where there was in-house mental health support all the time. I would love to have someone employed by the city and the county to have in-house mental health support for our first responders. That will grow, is my hope. And the first step is counting our visits, making sure it's needed and necessary, and then pitching something like that on a bigger picture to say at some point, hey guys, this should be something that's funded, because there is starting to be more funding for that exact sort of thing. So making sure we get our ducks in a row, and then if that passes off, then great. The other component too is we have a variety of clinicians that responders can see. Sometimes when it's in-house, that really limits how often, and we're a small community, so that might limit access to, the responder might not want to see the person who's employed by the city, you know, to see for mental health. So we kind of like to have our own variety of being able to pick and choose, but I would love to get there at some point, so.
And I just add, you know, the landscape is different now for this. We actually, I think, have a better opportunity now to deal with this. In the past, we had contracts out from the county for some of our public health, mental health services. Of course, part of the transition the last couple of years is to create an actual public health department. We didn't have that internally, and now we do. I know that Roberta, that's on her list, is kind of how do we help out in the public health realm. But because of some of these changes, there's actually, I think, an opportunity here. And I think to Chief Christensen's point, it's 2 things. You need money, but the money is wasted if there's not something in place to use it well. And I think, as you can see just by their presentation and those of us who know these individuals, that we have champions for it, and we have some proven structure now, and so this is going somewhere. And so maybe this is our opportunity now to build on this in a way that maybe we didn't have in the past.
Thank you.
Thank you. I left a few cards up here, mine and Marnie's, if you guys have more questions, we're happy to answer.
Thank you both for the important. As a member of the Lobsterfest committee, I can say that we couldn't be more proud to support you today, Lobster. couldn't be more proud to support those guys. And if you're not attending Lobsterfest and would still like to support them, as the committee, as the lobsters mentioned earlier, at stevorotary.com we put a button that goes directly to Routt County Crisis Support. It's the big red button says donate. So please and thank you. It's too bad we don't have an open mic section at Lobsterfest because I think Marty would kill.
Well, we could incorporate that.
As long as Julie doesn't get her to cry and then she can spout afterwards like she knows.
I cried a little bit.
I know, but swearing draws people in too. Before we cut the recording, Matthew, I just want to recognize quickly that I think this is sadly Chief Corey's last meeting with us in person. I hope that he will join us digitally in the future. I've kept bugging him saying we need a written request to terminate his membership. And I got an email from him today, but I don't think I'm going to look at it. So then we can't address it at the board, because I'm sure he didn't copy Tiffany or anyone else that matters of it. Chief, thank you for everything. And since you didn't stand, I'm going to make you stand and do boogies. All right. I need a hat or a lobster helmet. Sure. Matthew, let's kill the recording. So to remind everyone, we broadcast live for our memberships if they're not allowed to be here, if they can't be here.